Hello and welcome to episode 30 of Let Them Eat Cake. My name is Jack, my co-host is John, and later on we'll be joined by Ace. I'm going to throw it to John to introduce our guest.
Today we're going to be talking to Tacticool Girlfriend about American gun culture and how it's monetized through YouTube through a certain corporation. But before we get into that, there's been a mutiny in Russia that pretty much everyone in the corporate press is kind of doing okay, including Fox News. But everyone online, and I think it's mainly because everyone wants this like clickbait title, but like what's going on in Russia is not a coup. It is not a civil war. Um, Most people are using the word mutiny now. Rebellion could work. Uprising, maybe. Protest, honestly.
If you want to know more about Wagner and other sort of similar organizations, we do have an episode. It's episode 23 of Let Them Eat Cake. If you want to go back and listen to that one, that's a more in-depth breakdown of what Wagner is. We also have a few other ones where we've covered Wagner before. I think episode 9 was the other one with Mac Millies. We spoke about them in Africa and what they actually do. So if you want a bit more information on Wagner, go back to episode 9 and episode 23.
Yeah, so I guess, Ace, you can kind of introduce people to what exactly I'm talking about.
So, a little over 72 hours ago, Yevgeny Prigozhin's Wagner Group announced that they would be marching towards Moscow, and in the process, they managed to take two Russian cities. One of them being the city of Rostov, which is a major supplier and kind of a link for military logistics. And they managed to take over government buildings. Prigozhin talked to the deputy minister of defense, Unisbek, and after what seemed like a very tense situation that could potentially morph into something even bigger, it was announced that Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, had brokered a peace deal of sorts between Prigozhin and the Russian state. So since then, Prigozhin has been exiled back to Belarus. The Russian government has claimed that Wagner PMCs will now be contracted by the Russian Ministry of Defense, which is significant because before they were being contracted by basically private money laundering companies that were kind of under the purview of Wagner Group. And so now they'll be actually getting actual government contracts. And it was also announced that the Wagner PMCs who did participate in the mutiny would be allowed to, quote unquote, leave without being charged. But I don't think they would be up for a further, contract with Wagner or the Russian Ministry of Defense. Now, all this basically culminated because over the last maybe month and a half or so, Prigozhin has been in dispute with the Russian Ministry of Defense, specifically Sergei Shoigu and Gerasimov, over logistical supplies such as ammunition not reaching his troops. And he kind of believed him and his guys, as he calls them, of Wagner were left for dead in Bakhmut. And he obviously, as we kind of know, recorded several videos where he was pissed off and he was very angry and he was showing the dead bodies of Wagner PMCs.
It was also artillery shells and stuff like that, right, as well, which is why we saw a drop in artillery fire from Russia as well. Correct?
Yeah, just general logistical supplies that wasn't reaching Wagner. Yeah, as it went on, it obviously sort of culminated in this sort of last ditch attempt to force demands and stage an armed mutiny against the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Russian government. Who knows how Prigozhin expected this to go? Maybe he thought that they would give in to his demands after some sort of show of force. But yeah, it's kind of the situation summarized. If you guys want to add anything, go right on ahead.
I mean, theoretically, we could almost say that was probably the goal at the end of the day, was just to pressure the Russian military and Putin into giving Wagner the supplies that they've been begging for 6 months or so. Like, realistically, that's all it could have been. It could have just been theater. As John has said, they weren't taking hostages. They weren't doing any of this sort of stuff. To jump into calling it a coup, a civil war, is just patently absurd. And it's even funnier when the corporate press is doing a better job than all these internet journalists on covering this with the minimal information that we have. Like,
Pringleson is on the mic talking about this too, but like there's like this video of somebody like running through a field, like a camp, saying that their camp got bombed and 38 people died, so now they're marching on Russia, but nothing has been produced to show that that ever happened.
Right, and to this point.
So that's my biggest issue, is that we've seen no evidence of the trigger point of the mutiny for that to take place. That's my big issue with what's going on here, is like being fishy. And then the next thing is that we have seen how Russian logistics work, right? Even the issue to call the National Guard in to quell the mutiny, they got stuck in a traffic jam and weren't able to do shit. They were only able to cross like one road to Moscow, right? Because that's how bad their logistics are. Yet Wagner, I mean, one tank got stuck in a wall, but Wagner's able to like flow in all these troops logistically and surround something in like an hour. Russia got trapped in Ukraine because they didn't plan in advance and got stuck. We've seen them deploy with the National Guard on this. They didn't plan in advance. They got stuck, right? So this had to have been planned in advance by at least one guy, Pringleson. So from there, it's who is complacent outside of him, because he wouldn't do this move if he believed that like they were just going to shoot him in the head after.
Yeah, there has to be more to the story that we're not being told, and this is why coup or civil war is not the accurate title.
Well,
Mutiny
also,
is closer.
I think mutiny is the most correct one, because the main reason we think is to get rid of the head of the military.
A lot of Prigozhin's ire in the last couple months has been directed specifically at Shoigu, the head of the Russian Department of Defense.
So that's why it's a mutiny, because it was never about. Even he said, he went on and he had to clarify. It's like, listen, it wasn't a coup. The guy who orchestrated it was like, it wasn't a coup. Like, that dude is still at meetings. Like, they said they were going to fire him, but he's still showing up to meetings like nothing ever happened.
And realistically, if he's meeting with the Deputy Minister of Defense, it's more likely that's the actual motivation here, is to get rid of the head guy, because there must be some kind of conflict between Pringleman and the head of the Ministry.
But then also, you also have how complacent is Putin. Did Putin want to get rid of this guy? And,
well, that's an interesting question as well.
And then like they deleted the comment, but I was looking at what Alex said to me. But they might have deleted it because they changed their mind and thought it was now inaccurate information. But they said they didn't know how much weight you could put in Putin being an orchestrator of this. And like everything just seemed. I've covered a lot of conflict. I've covered a lot of coups, and if people are going to be like, oh, you say it seems friendly, but they shot down a helicopter. Who cares? They shot down one helicopter.
Well, 8 according to some people, but we don't actually know. The only confirmed footage I've seen is them attempting to shoot down a helicopter.
Yeah, the one where the manpad missed.
Yeah.
That's all we've really seen, and the tank getting stuck, and some theater in the town where people are filming like it's a movie.
Well, then when they're leaving, all the people are coming out and like hugging
and cheering,
and being like, "We love you" and stuff.
So it's all super suspicious.
Another key thing to remember here is given that Prigozhin is kind of part of like the whole Russian oligarchy, and that Russia is an oligarchy. This is kind of what happens when you have a lot of guys at the top who control so much, is that there is obviously just a giant conflict of interest. Part of the reason why I think a lot of the logistical efforts by Russia and the war effort in general hasn't been very well structured. There's a lot of differing priorities among like Putin's henchmen, we'll call them.
If someone called it a coup, don't listen to them.
Yeah. I've said this several times, but like anyone referring to it as a civil war or a coup is not worth listening to. Yeah, and honestly, it's like, as far as what do we know? We don't know shit. We don't know anything. We've heard them say this is going to happen, that's going to happen. We don't know shit. I think one thing that can be said for sure is like it was unusual, and it will change the dynamic of Russian politics. But how much, I don't know. Is Putin gonna have any challenge to his power, or still be an absolute dictator? You know, like even though he's not an absolute dictator, he does have to appease the oligarchy, but they don't give a fuck at the end of the day because they're getting paid out regardless. They're not just gonna stop paying out their corrupt goons. So that's the thing is like I'm unsure of even how much change is going to happen. Like some guy named Pringleson is getting a retirement in Belarus, I guess, and that's all.
It remains to be seen. Like a month and a half or so ago, it just seemed like Prigozhin was upset at his conditions, and maybe the Russian Ministry of Defense or Department of Defense would appeal to his, complaints, we'll call them, and then it spiraled into what happened a couple of days ago. And just to add on to like the whole point of the coup and the civil war here, first and foremost, coups generally aren't announced on Telegram to hundreds of thousands of people. They're very like secretly planned and orchestrated and kept on the down low. Like having literally lived through a coup, nobody has any idea what's going on. Like that just speaking from personal experience, it all happens so fast.
I mean, look at Myanmar.
Yeah, it all happened.
I mean, that got caught on video as well. Some chick dancing and the trucks are going down behind.
As far as the Civil War thing goes, that's jumping the gun really hard.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, did this situation have the potential to develop into like a civil conflict of sorts? Sure, but you shouldn't jump the gun and immediately say this is a civil war. No, you gotta
but
be
then I'll get
responsible
clicks
and monitor the situation, and try and be like an informed citizen or a good journalist or whatever you are. But yeah.
So the towns that he's in, it's the military towns of Russia. Everyone there is in the military. So it wasn't Moscow.
Yeah. And that is, I think, the most important part.
Just to also add on to the point, I think the fact that they backed down shows that they're, that everyone kind of backed down and eased up on the situation, and further bloodshed wasn't continued between the various groups involved, be it the Russian military or Wagner. I think it shows that they're still trying to cover their asses and keep their assets and keep what's at stake for them being actors like Shoigu, like Prigozhin, whoever. They're not interested in possibly losing what little they have or great amounts of whatever they have.
So anyway,
I think that's good.
Here's an episode that isn't really political at all. So it's probably
Not really.
I think we ask about gun control for a minute, and that's about all we do as far as politics go. So
yeah, it's pretty much the one question on her opinion on gun control.
Yeah,
which is interesting nonetheless. But yeah, it's an episode about guns.
We have a weapon more powerful than the British Empire, and that weapon is our refusal to bow to any order but our own, any institution but our own.
Hello everybody, I'm Tacticool Girlfriend. I'm a YouTuber who talks about guns, but I try to make that information a lot more accessible for a wider audience than is traditional in the GunTube sphere. So I've been doing this project for about 3 years and still going strong.
What about do you do any TikTok stuff or anything like that?
I don't do any TikToks. Apparently guns are banned on TikTok.
Oh, are they? Wow.
So,
Really?
yes.
Man.
Interesting.
Last I checked, and also TikTok as like an app is simultaneously really cool, but it's also extremely annoying, and I really don't like the format personally. And YouTube is extremely antiquated, but I do like the format in the community.
I really wanna just I wanna hire a Zoomer that just cuts our stuff into like 10-second TikToks and give him $1 a video. And like that will be my TikTok.
Well, both of us refuse to download it.
I'm not putting that shit on my phone.
No.
I already fucking downloaded enough shit that was like problematic today. The documents that I found today were crazy.
Yeah. Fucking hell.
I just hate apps.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Ask her about gun control, Jack.
Yeah. Well, this is sort of where I wanted to start. So, where do you see the balance point?
More
Is there a
guns.
balance
More
point?
guns equals more safe.
I guess, like, what kind of balance point between what?
So a balance point between not fucking normal people over for the crimes of like psychopaths and like keeping people safe, right? The government doesn't actually give a shit about keeping people safe.
Right.
It's not their prerogative. Their job is make money and people expendable. Put that compromise. What level of like pro gun are you?
Well, let me just like preface this by saying that when this question is asked, we're framing this within the framework of like an existing state and whatever edicts that they, call upon their citizenry to follow. So when we're doing that, we are deferring to the state as the authority, and therefore every flaw that comes in the enforcement of said laws, no matter how well intentioned they are going to reflect the integrity of the state and how accountable it is to its citizens. So for me, like, I don't really like states, and I don't think that there's really any legitimacy in their authority other than the tyranny that they provide. So yeah, I don't think gun control is ever the answer, honestly. I think that when it comes to public safety, there are practical measures that can be taken, but I just simply, it's more of a trust issue for me. I don't see, like, when these bills are written, they're already in bad faith. And it's pretty plain to see that. So my problem is largely not a question of how many guns should we have and how easy should they be to get. It's what kind of society are we living in and what do these enforcement measures entail when it comes to trying to improve public safety. So in this case, like, I think that I would imagine a world where, guns aren't necessary, and that would be a beautiful world to live in, and I hope to see that come about, honestly. But the world that we're in is dangerous, and the enforcement of guns, I think, of gun control itself is historically dangerous. So I don't really believe in it from where we're standing right now.
Okay, I agree. John
Machine
might
guns.
disagree.
Machine
I like
guns.
machine guns.
How are we feeling about machine guns?
I just-
real machine guns.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, how much do you want the state to get involved in, managing that? The way I see it, if the state can use machine guns, anybody should be able to use machine guns. And if we can all simultaneously just snap our fingers and say, hey, guns don't exist anymore, they're gone. Everybody loses their guns. Sure, that's fair, at least. But the way I see it, like, if cops and military can do something, I don't think that they are more qualified to do anything. And in fact, based on their track record for the last couple hundred years, I especially think they're like the last people who should actually be trusted with guns. I would trust a random person far sooner than I would any of those authority figures with a machine gun.
See, I actually 100% agree with you, and I say this all the time: is if the state can have it, we should have it. It's as simple
agree.
as that. It's a balancing point, as I said, right? And this is where I sort of sit. And obviously, because I'm Australian, I could go into the 1996 gun ban in Australia was entirely done in bad faith. It was put through from conception to law in 12 days.
For example, as bad as the current Supreme Court is, they overturned New York City's handgun law because it was the state's handgun law because it was racist, and it actually was a racist law. Like, it was written specifically to be like along with those types of stop and frisks policies because there is this whole push to clean up New York. That is a little ridiculous, but they also do a lot of regulation of handguns. And if you actually do care about gun crime and gun stats, that's what you need to be talking about is handguns, because like it's not even comparable to talk about rifles. And that's the issue as well, is when you go into this policy, if you try to do a nationwide policy, it won't work that way because you need to be targeting the right things. As the way New York is, I'm sure there's plenty of people who would love looser gun laws where you can go somewhere to get them. And I think that's kind of the beneficial system there.
John, you brought up a really good point about talking about stats and like in general, and we're talking about things like mass shootings, which are always like what are used to bring up the AR-15, which is just the most popular rifle in the US, and everybody wants to ban it for whatever reason. And like when we want to really, if we're gonna be honest about like, hey, let's start about talking about like what is the biggest factor in gun related deaths and like how do we tackle that, it's like it's always handguns. uh, Rifles are like nothing. Almost nobody in this country dies from rifles, and like these mass shootings in terms of like the broad spectrum and the grand scheme of like gun violence, especially also just like people cause of death in general, like rifles are like insanely down on the list, like hundreds of places down on the
It's like
list.
1.3% or
We
something like
just
that.
posted a. Oh no, we haven't posted it yet, but we did a. We reacted to the JR-15. You know, have you seen that? Do you know what that
Not
is?
familiar, no.
No, it's just a 22 semi-automatic rifle made in an AR-15 style. You know, for
Yeah,
kids, it's like
right.
2 pounds, and it's like, you know, they know that it's gonna make people outraged, so it's gonna do the marketing for them. So like these guys made a
Right.
killing off of this gun.
Totally.
And it's even funnier because people don't realize that like the Ruger 1022 is like the most popular gun ever. Like I swear every kid in America has shot a 1022.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
So I think the biggest thing is, for starters, it's a cultural issue.
it is.
For starters, like if you go back a few years ago, nobody was even using the AR-15. So there's a lot of things behind that. I mean, we can blame video games if we want. I'm sure a lot of, like, you know, like you had FPS Russia making guns look cool. Like that was a big part of, like, you know, the whole, you know, killing Osama bin Laden with the cool guns, and like that was a
Mark
huge
18,
influential
baby.
thing, you know. And then you also have a lot of people who just come out of the military, and those were the types of rifles that they were using. But like,
Yeah.
the AR-15 wasn't that popular 10 years ago.
I mean, I would say maybe 20 years ago is when it started to become popular, and that, you know, before then, like I had friends with AR-15s before 2000, and yeah, you know, they never were uncommon as long as like they've been around on the civilian market. It's just like been a gradual march of time, and like the global war on terror definitely, like as you said, like soldiers coming home probably were familiar with the platform, buying that, you know, and there's a whole entire gun culture built around the global war
Yeah,
on terror.
capitalism,
Yeah,
and advertising on top of that.
movies, everything after 9/11 like became very militaristic, and so naturally that became more popular. But I mean, the AR is like an ancient design. It's coming up on like what, 60 years, 70 years old now?
70.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing new. It just happens to be the most popular design for semi-auto rifles in this country. If you're in Russia, it's an AK-74M. You know, it's just is the American rifle.
That HK one, it's really nice. I mean,
Yeah, they're
Yeah, the
also very
416.
expensive.
Yeah,
it's nice
extremely
though.
Gucci.
Plus, you
I
can
think
say this is the gun that killed Osama bin Laden when you show it to people. I knew more people with AKs than ARs. We had a kid here that, like, he had an AK of like, something happened where like he was like running from his dad, and he like ran out of the house with the rifle and was like running away from his dad, and like all the schools in the area went into lockdown.
Oh my God.
holy shit.
And like, you know,
Wow.
he gets arrested and stuff, but like later on I'm playing GTA with the guy, and he pulls out an AK and starts killing cops, and it's like, this is what should have happened. Definitely something that I saw more common. I don't know. I guess people who wanted that type of semi-automatic rifle would be the people who would just buy AKs anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
AKs
think
are
they used to be more popular
AKs are
than they are.
definitively cooler than the AR. Let's be real.
Hey man,
Got more vibe. It's
if-
definitely got more vibe.
if the
It's so
Taliban has a choice, guess what they use?
AKs.
No.
Oh, they use
Really?
ARs and ARs a
I've
lot lately.
yeah.
Interesting.
Well, they also, have you seen the they do a AR conversion to the AK in the Kyber shops where they like
Oh yeah,
ammo
I've seen
stuff.
I've
And
seen the Kyber.
yeah, they're like
AK
fake.
AR.
They just have like panels on them, and like the
Right.
forward assist does nothing.
AR-47. So
I saw
funny.
this picture, and it's just it's a picture of a Taliban guy. He's got an AR and he's trying to pull the forward assist, like it's, and the caption on it is just like, "Don't dabble in magic you don't understand."
That's so funny.
Anyway, I don't know why we still have this on screen. We don't really need that anymore, but
no.
So yeah, anyway, cultural issue. So what do we do culturally that is going to reduce harm done with rifles? Because it's I mean, Columbine, they use Tech 9s, like, you know,
And
like,
shotguns.
And a Caltech.
Yes. Some really shitty guns, actually.
They were so shit. I was looking at them the other day. They were fucking horrendous.
Yeah. Which is like why I'm like, every time like people bring up AR-15s for school shootings, I'm like, you can literally use anything for a school shooting and be pretty much just as effective. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the gun that's the problem, and no one seems to ever want to hear that.
well,
And this is what I always say, and I keep telling people, and I specifically said this yesterday to someone. I was like, if you really want to discuss mass shootings, stop talking about the rifle used.
Right.
And it's always, it was, I think it might have been that call to activism page. So I'm a big proponent of self-defense, because especially in today's culture, especially in today's ramping up of a environment conducive to genocide, because it's definitely happening. The conservatives might deny it, but it's very obvious.
yeah, that's what
that
that's
it's
where I was going to
coming.
go next too, is just as far as like justifying like gun bans, absolutely not right now, not the way it looks.
Yeah, no way. So I'm a big proponent of this. How? Because I'm assuming that minority communities are not necessarily the most pro gun. So how would you propose upping this number of not only armed minorities but trained armed minorities?
Fight gun control, because gun control will always go after minorities first. It always has. It's been built and designed from the ground up ever since slavery has ended in this country to specifically go after Black people. That's traditionally like where gun control has usually come from, is around controlling minorities. This is why one of the biggest reasons why I oppose gun control is because it specifically makes it easier for the state to further marginalize already marginalized people. So that's a big issue for me. So yes, fight gun control on every front where you can, because minorities will be the first ones to fall. And if we want to get more minorities armed, I mean, minorities typically don't usually have a lot of money, hence being marginalized. But, you know,
Government grants for guns.
yeah, I mean, sure, if we want to involve the
Gun
state,
stamps.
that'd be pretty cool. But I mean, realistically, this is like why I do what I do. I want to make information more accessible, especially for minorities who specifically have been left out of the conversation around guns for a long time and intentionally get kept out of these communities. And I want to open those doors so that more minorities can be armed. And in order to do that, they need to have awareness. They need to first feel welcome in certain circles where they can go to the range and shoot and not feel like people are going to be side-eyeing them or worse. Creating a welcoming space is the first thing that you got to do to open those doors. And then you got to create an information base that speaks to them, that allows them to access that information to use to inform their purchasing decisions, whatever, their training decisions, considerations, and all of that. So getting all of that in line is a monumental task. It goes against the grain of dominant gun culture in this country, and dominant gun culture in this country is intentionally designed to gatekeep all of that away from said minorities. So, you know, it's a multi-layered approach. I'm just one girl doing my thing. I'm by no means like saying I'm a hero or anything for that. I'm saying really more people need to be doing this work. And it needs to become more common, more regular, and it needs to destigmatize firearms in general, because like you said, Jack, like the minority communities generally are not crazy about firearms. It's unfortunate that minorities are squeezed between this two-party system that is absolutely not interested in their welfare whatsoever. And so, you know, it's like, do you choose defending yourself and taking all that on when you are a single mother raising three in a impoverished community? Is that even realistic? Unfortunately, the weight of capitalism is absolutely going to make those people defer to police for their own protection because they can't they don't have the resources and the know-how and the community to take on their own self-defense. But like, I think if we can chip away at that, if we can highlight resources that are accessible for people to use, if we can create those communities where people are welcome, create the resources for them to get educated so that they can intelligently and like wisely handle firearms in a way that's not dangerous, and do that all in the face of like, yes, actual real crime problems where crime is violent and gun fueled. Yeah, there's it's a very complex issue, and like minority communities usually are, like I said before, impoverished. So naturally there is going to be more violence in those communities because people are scrambling for resources, and there's all sorts of different kinds of violent crime that use guns. So they are a bad stigma, and that's been my experience. But if you can open people's minds up for a little bit and be like, wait, have you considered some practical steps that you can take towards your own safety, and have you considered being more critical of the authorities that you rely on for your own protection, which truly do not protect you? It's a big conversation that we need to have, and we're way behind the curve. But that said, on the other side of things, the biggest growing demographics of firearm owners in the US right now are women and Black people. So like, I mean, it's changing. It is already changing very quickly.
I wanted to get into how you got into guns.
The way I got into guns was of historical interest, actually. It's kind of funny. I was never really a gun person. I grew up in a household that was anti-gun, and I initially just kind of took my parents' word for what it was at face value and thought guns were a terrible thing. And like, I hate what guns do to people. I really do. I don't want people to die terrible, violent deaths, and being shot sucks. So I don't generally like the idea of a gun. But like, the reality is, guns exist. They're here to stay just as much as like any part of the modern industrial world is. But all that aside, I'm going off on a tangent. How I got into guns was of historical interest. I started collecting historical firearms because I was an amateur historian, and I was very much interested in like early 20th century combat and just military history in that regard. So yeah, I started collecting firearms out of just curiosity and interest. And it wasn't until many, many, many years later that I was like, wait a minute, you can actually use these things for self-defense. And I am considering my self-defense now. Maybe it would be practical for me to actually like use some contemporary firearms to prepare myself for my own self-defense. And then I started carrying, and yeah,
You're
the
carrying
rest is history.
1911 though.
Never owned or carried a 1911, thankfully. Yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely better ones out there.
Yeah.
So
Like the Makarov.
I mean, Walter Sobchak would probably disagree, but
so okay, so historical interest, like World War One, World War Two sort of stuff.
yeah,
Oh
and
yeah,
everything in between.
okay.
Just like first half of the 20th century, really. But like, I've had a really big interest in the entire 20th century in terms of military history. But like those really old like historical firearms that like are still around and like in good shape, like it's pretty cool to me that you can have that hands-on material aspect with history.
This is Charlie Wilson, aka the guy that it gave the Afghans guns, and this is his actual home.
Baller.
That's cool. I'd love to have AKs on my wall. That'd be so cool.
Just when you were talking
I would
about how
have
you were
the
collecting
flip on my
guns
door.
historically,
Right.
this is all I could think of was this picture.
I was just gonna say that I think that, especially in the Black community, I'm not so sure about women so much, but I know for a fact that obviously in the Black community, gun crime is obviously an issue. Now, as you said before, the destigmatization I think is very, very important within the Black community, because if they, and I mean, I would have to actually go in and like talk to people to truly understand what they feel, how they feel about it, what their opinions are, that sort of stuff. But at face value, I feel like the destigmatization in the Black community of firearms to a point where it's not so much like an offensive use of them, more of a defensive use. I think that would be very beneficial, and on top of that would subvert the conservative narratives. So imagine like, and this is sort of the scenario that I see is Black gun ownership on the rise, Black gun crime on the drop, right? and then the conservatives will flail and the mask will slip, and then we'll really see what they are, right? And this is sort of my hope for that. But at the end of the day, um, whether it happens or not, I don't know. So obviously it's on the rise. I'm not sure where it's on the rise either. So this is the other thing. So it's all demographics. Like, I sort of lost my train of thought, but it's sort of demographics based on location, on who's buying, who's not, who's what they're buying too. Because I don't know how much access to good information there is in the black community. Because I feel like if they were to just do community training days, that alone would drastically destigmatize firearms. I
And they
think
are.
anyway.
I've literally worked with groups who are doing that.
Because I
People
know
are
that
doing that
there's
work.
there's a women's group who specifically does women's self-defense training. When I was in South Carolina, I looked them up because they were operating in the area. It's like Pink Guns or something like that. There's like some organization like that where they specifically invite women to train self-defense. So like this, and this is, and it's
It's an
a lot of
NRA
the.
program, I believe.
Oh, is it
I
interesting?
would assume.
Yeah.
I found it. Oh my god, you're gonna love this picture. I got another great picture for you. Because we were talking about education in the community.
And when we're talking about reducing gun violence and like gun related deaths and all of that, I think that like instead of gun control, like has anyone considered gun education?
I was
Like,
gonna say gang reform is something that would be something that would have to be taken seriously, but you can enforce
Community
it where
policing.
you can empower people. Like they've done like so many studies that this shit actually works, but Chicago, it's just not going to hit. Chicago's just way too corrupt. I mean, even Gaddafi was selling guns there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's insane. You just can't. I don't know if you could fix Chicago. It's
funny. My friend actually said to me the other day. I don't know if it's true or not, but Chicago was safer when Al Capone was around.
probably.
It wouldn't surprise me either. But yeah, like education, and it's a conservative talking point as well about this education thing. They always put those black and white photos of kids with guns in schools and shit.
And they
like,
also just say more guns, and that's like the solution.
Yeah,
isn't more guns.
I just don't think guns are the problem. Like, it's not more guns or less guns. It's like, wait, why are people wanting to kill people? Maybe we should talk about that. Maybe we should talk about motive. Why does no one talk about this? It's insane to me that like everyone's talking about, oh, well, this person stabbed somebody with a butter knife, better ban those too. Like, no, wait, why did this person stab this person? Maybe there was a
UK
reason.
things.
Yeah, just UK things. Got a license? Like, I mean, it's absurd. And like the UK is like the ultimate, conclusion of that kind of logic. It's like, oh, now we can't even like have scissors. But
yeah, kitchen knives are now regulated. Did you hear
yeah,
about this?
yes, yeah, screwdrivers, things like
Yeah,
that. You can't carry
insane.
those on the street.
I did want to ask more about sort of the gun YouTube space. So
Sure.
obviously there are some quite big gun YouTubers around. Have you approached them as like in a way of being like, hey, I really want to do this. Can you help me do this?
I mean, to be honest, like I do feel like I'm very much on my own. And that's not for I think that's for a good reason, I don't think most channels are very crazy about me, and like if there is any reflection of like what predominant gun culture thinks of me, and like I can see in the comments and like what people say about me, then like yeah, the most people who like these channels and the channels themselves probably also don't like me, by merit of me literally just existing, breathing air and talking about guns. It's hilarious how fragile everybody is, but that's kind of just the pathetic state of the world that we're in right now, and gun culture in general. It's absolute garbage. So I've attracted attention from other people who are sympathetic. And as far as bigger channels that I've collaborated with, like the only one that you can really cite here is going to be InRange TV. And Carl has reached out to me. He was the one who reached out to me. He was like, hey, I want to like invite you on my Q&A, and we can just record a Zoom video and you can help me answer some of these questions. I'm like, that's really cool. Like, I really like what Carl does. I always have. I've always liked his channel. And he's one of the few solid people who has a large voice and a big enough reach where I can go out there and be like, okay, this is a bigger channel who actually would support me. So I have collaborated with him. I will continue to do so. Still am. And yeah, it's just like, unfortunately, instances like that are extremely rare from where I'm standing right now.
I wanted to talk about this tweet you made right here. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Tactical Gear too gay.
Yeah.
You should lean into it and go like full Blair White and just get a pink AR.
Well, she like has like weird Nerf gun looking stuff, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I think
shit.
she's
That's
extremely
really weird.
tacky,
That's like we
honestly.
should not make them look like toys.
I kind of like the Cerakoting idea. I think that's kind of cool. It adds a unique customizability.
No, it's fun.
to
It's
firearms.
definitely fun.
Like when I had my rifle, it was just a bolt action 6.5.
But she literally writes Nerf on the gun.
Did
like
she actually?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It's literally
surely not.
And like she painted the tip orange too.
Yes, that I don't agree with because that's
not okay.
Yeah, that's
so stupid.
Let me make sure I'm not talking out my ass.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I had my rifles, I got my big one Cerakoted because I wanted it was just black. I'm like, this is boring. So I got a burnt bronze with matte black, and it looked amazing. And I'm like, if I had more, I would Cerakote every single gun. I don't give a fuck that it cost $1,000 to Cerakote a gun. I don't care. It looks cool and it protects it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a ceramic coating for the gun. It protects it. So it's like this customizability, I think, is a good thing. I like this idea because it also, you know, it kind of gets away from this black gun scary thing, right? But also they're not. It just shits me because like they're not the only semi-automatic rifle.
No, yeah,
and there's so many,
right?
And it's like, why? But yeah, just to harp on the Cerakoting, it is okay. It does look like a toy. It actually does have Nerf.
It says Nerf right on it. This looks like a super soaker. So that's what I'm saying. Is just like this shit. Yeah. This shit is not okay. This is not something we should do.
I don't agree with that.
We should not make them look like toys.
I'm not going to tell people what to do with their guns.
This is okay. This is
the
okay.
Pink one's cool.
The Barbie Louis Vuitton AR. That's fine.
It's pretty cute.
But like writing, come on, dude.
No, that's
got the
that's stick. That's stick.
That is a real troll move.
You gotta take the orange tip off
at least. The orange tip I don't like, but that's cool. I love that color scheme. That is cool. Like I get the appeal.
Yeah.
And the one thing the one thing that I did agree with her on when she did put this video up is she doesn't have kids. The guns aren't around kids. There's no concern there, right? But if someone
her
was to do this,
doesn't allow children to watch her probably because they think that she's going to convert them.
She's going to groom
probably, yeah.
Oh my god!
But like it's like that in that aspect, like no kids. Okay, they look like toys, you know, but there's no real present danger there for anything to happen.
For
if
sure.
I'm just assuming that she's a responsible gun owner, right? I'm assuming that she's not pulling them out in the street in LA. You know what I mean? Like it's that sort of thing. Well, I think she's in Texas now, right?
Well, I've never seen those guns. She's never posted them since. She's only like posed with. I don't think she even owns guns. I think it's all just.
Or she just buys things because she's
wealthy.
Yeah.
Do you do 3-gun, anything like that?
I do 2-gun. Yes.
Okay, so you've got some experience with like speed shooting and that sort of stuff, like target shooting, that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I think you could really hone in, because it's not it's not so much just showing that you like guns; it's showing that you're capable. it gives people, it doesn't give people the opportunity to doubt you. You just prove yourself.
I mean, that's what I did with my desert brutality footage. I literally showed people my scores and my footage, and everybody can pick it apart and analyze as much as I want. I'm a fan of just like being real with people, like people who want to be like, oh, you're just some girl with guns. And it's like, well, here we go. Here's the proof. I just like also am competent enough to like shoot them decently. I'm not a great shot. I'm not the best competition shooter in the world. I'm very much an amateur, but that still puts me above like 98% of most gun owners in this country.
I think there's a lot of room to get into the fashion side of things, because obviously that's what guns are for men right now, is like accessorizing, you know?
It's like a handbag.
Not just
Yeah.
guns. I mean, we're talking like
So-
deodorant and wipes. They're all man wipes and man stick and
Well, I'm just talking about
stupid.
specifically like they
Yeah.
need all the tactical gear on the gun too.
Yes.
Like they need to accessorize that way as
The
well.
over
On
tactical
top of all
guns.
the
Ridiculous.
manliness.
My thing is like I generally don't want to collaborate with people unless I know for sure that they're friendly. I don't want to feed into their fan base. I don't want to give them more attention. I don't want to, by me interacting with somebody, I don't want other people to like get an impression that this person is friendlier than they really are. I do like keeping my channel linked and associated with people who I actually do believe in. I am not really that desperate to like get the approval of anybody for what I do. And I don't really care what people think. I literally just put my information out there. I'm like, this is what I know. This is my experience. Take it and run with it. I don't care. I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. I'm not here to like be like, I'm the best at everything, because I'm not. And I'm okay with that. But like, yeah, I think there are like small nuanced inroads into other circles where, you know, some things might organically take shape.
Yeah.
And
I
am
think
willing
there's
to
a
collaborate.
serious lack of like you. I mean, I'm just assuming here because you already said capitalism sucks. There's a severe lack of like not right-wing nationalist GunTube channels.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm like, InRange TV and me are like the only ones of our caliber that are even saying being a bigot sucks.
Yeah,
Like,
TFB TV also does the no politics, only guns thing.
yeah.
But like I'm then there's like people who are like straight up like just in like the information war actively,
Yeah.
and like are just very dangerous people just because of the rhetoric that they're adopting now.
Right. I mean, Carl and Russell Fagan literally were banned from AR15.com for saying that Second Amendment is for everybody. Like,
What the fuck?
I mean, it's like, this is where we're at. This is where we're at. And this is why I'm like, I'm in a very hostile corner of the internet. People literally want to kill me, let alone like just want
Yeah.
to see me fail. And like, I'm not about to like be like, hey, like, let's like bridge the gap here, friend. Like, it's like, no, I am worried about my own safety. And I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to be around some of these people with guns,
Yeah.
honestly. But that, you know, there's so much gray area. It's not black and white at all. There's a lot of really cool people out there who I do know and don't know yet. And like, yeah, I think some people are like pretty reasonable. Like, you know, I get along with more libertarian types because they are like, you know, I got my own opinion of things, but like, hey, you know, if you want to do you, that's not my business. And that's that. And like, at least sometimes a bigotry can get
they're few and far
tempered.
between these days.
Yes.
Those
Yeah,
libertarians are
but-
kind of a rare breed.
Yeah.
Most of them
Yeah.
become anarchists.
Yeah, right. Well,
It's
I mean,
either they
libertarian
either
was
go
the word for
nationalist or
anarchists.
anarchist. It's one of the other nationalists, and like
Yeah.
and caps are still nationalist, by the way.
Right.
Well, they're not
They're the
anarchists.
worst. They're the worst. I think your platform is big enough as it is, and that more people in this space should be looking at you instead of like, I mean, fuck these people, you know?
Yeah, right. Why should you give them more attention than they don't deserve? And, you know, why should you give yourself psychic damage like that? Because
And you also control your own space to a degree.
exactly.
You know, you sell that out if you go to those types of people and you open up a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And like you know, Leviathan Group, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Leviathan Group, but they pretty much own most of the gun tubers on YouTube. They actually almost every single like very popular high profile channel except for a few
Really?
are actually all a part of this talent agency, so to speak, where they
That's why they
work
all
with
have
the
those
industry.
collaborations.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Big Daddy Unlimited and like all these like
Oh, that's why they
acre
get the gun.
golds
That's why
and
they have the gun releases as they get released.
yeah,
Oh, that makes so much
yeah.
sense.
So this company, this like agency,
Oh,
literally works with the industry to get materials for gun tubers to review, and then gives them to the gun tubers to review, and then pays them some portion of sales. And yeah, it's like literally go to the tribe part of that page, and you will see pretty much every major gun tuber on that page.
I'm actually so curious who's on it and who
Pretty
I
much
watch that's
everybody.
on this, because I feel like I don't watch many that are in this group because I don't watch people who do those gun reviews.
Yeah, I mean, almost all of them are on here.
Sticks, okay.
And
Colin and Noah, that's funny.
me, Carl, I think Ian, and a handful of other people who are on the more popular end of GunTube are some of the few people who are not going to be found on this
Oh,
list.
this is
They
super.
approached me twice.
This is a super red flag for me
Did
right
they
here.
really?
They approached me twice to recruit me, and
Oh, because they just want to eat
yeah,
your
they don't
brain.
care. They just see that I have so many views, and they are like, okay, well, what about you? And yeah, I like thought about it long and hard because they gave me a great offer, honestly. But like after seeing like who's on here and like
Yeah.
the kind of like association that I would have to make with all these other people who like I don't want anything to do with, it was definitely like it felt like I'd be selling my soul and like defeat the entire purpose of what I'm doing.
That's so disappointing.
Yeah, it sucks. And like all these people are beholden to the industry to basically tell them what to review and what to say, and it's all just very programmatic, and I don't think people
These
appreciate
guys
just
though,
like how
Ordnance
big
Lab,
this
don't
is.
they do like the Syrian Hell Cannon videos though?
I'm actually not familiar with them.
I think these are they make like actual like improvised explosives and
Ava
stuff.
Funel as well. Fucking hell.
Like, I'm pretty sure.
It's so disappointing.
Yeah,
Brandon
yeah. See,
Herrera's on here.
I think they
That's so
3D printed a
disappointing.
claymore and like made their own claymore. Like they
See,
definitely
that's
showed
cool.
people how to make Syrian Hellfire cannons. I'm pretty sure this is the channel. They talk about like explosives and like how you register these explosives because they have to register all the explosives that they use in the show and shit.
Yeah.
So they like talk
That's
about.
so
So that's actually
disappointing.
the more interesting side of that channel is this like all the like regulations they do to like make it so they can legally explode something.
That's cool.
No demo ranch. That's very, very promising.
Yeah.
Cool. I feel like he should be able to poach some people.
Is that's probably no? This is a demo ranch. This is Ordnance Lab. It's probably his demolition.
No,
ranch.
I'm looking at the Leviathan group people.
Oh, who's demolition ranch?
Oh, big channel.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the biggest. I would say.
Yeah,
and he's not on it
after
which is very
FPS
interesting.
Russia. I think
Yeah.
FPS Russia is like the biggest channel that ever existed, but like Forgotten Weapons and like
Yes.
Donut Operator and that channel, yeah, are all like the top tier.
See, I'm a bit conflicted about Grand Thumb being on here because I kind of like his content. I like what he does.
He's a good presenter of information. He's very good at what he does.
He bothers me just like the rest.
He's delving into the culture war, and when he did that, when he posted that one tweet, everyone was like, "Dude, don't stay the fuck out of it," because it's playing with fucking fire. Yeah,
what he stands for is despicable, and like I don't agree with his like ethics or moral compass at all. But I gotta like hand it to him. He's a good YouTuber. He does make good videos. He also he used to start most of them with like a transphobic dog whistle joke, but
what was that one?
It was like it started out with like the attack helicopter. Oh, I identify as an attack helicopter.
Yeah, the one joke.
So it's
the
like
only joke.
The only.
He'd always be like, "Ladies, gentlemen, and my often forgotten age 64 Apache attack helicopters."
Yeah,
and like, and he would like keep the joke going. He did this for like literally years. At the beginning of every single video, he would like name a weapon and be like, "For those who identify as this," you know. And it was just a whole riff on an extremely stale transphobic joke because there's only like 3 of them that they.
Yeah, it's very 2014.
God. Yeah,
so how do we make more Tacticool Girlfriend channels?
More people need to step up. I'm honestly.
I would, but I live in Australia.
Yeah, totally fair. And like obviously like a lot of people don't have the bandwidth or resources to do this, and like what I'm doing is extremely unique, but nonetheless, I am like extremely frustrated because like I didn't want to make this channel in the first place. The only reason I ever did this was because I was telling everybody to do something like this. And everyone's like, yeah, that would be really cool. I'm like, yeah, it would be really cool. Someone should do it. And they're like, yeah. And then finally, like, no one did anything. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to make this myself then begrudgingly. And so I did. But like, regardless, I want more people to be doing this. I'm not going to be doing this forever. Someday I'm going to stop making videos, and like, I can't be the only one doing this kind of work. It's crazy. So yes, I don't know exactly what people need to be doing to get there, but I would really love to see more channels pop up. I hate being alone in this. We could use all the help we could get.
I mean, if I ever move to America, I'm definitely doing that because
You
the
should.
first thing I'm buying is an
should.
M14 because I've always wanted one.
Cool.
And then Benelli M4 because it's another one that I've always
Fun.
wanted.
Very fun.
I also wanted to buy a Lithgow F90. They were going to take them to America, but Thales didn't want to sell them to the American civilian market for ethical reasons. A military-industrial complex didn't want to sell guns to the American civilian market for ethical reasons.
What about the Libby AK, Jack?
Oh.
What about the? What about the?
You know what it looks like? It looks like one of those British service rifles.
Yeah, it looks like
the
an
worst British service
L85.
rifle
How
ever.
dare
It
you.
just looks like an L85. God, that's embarrassing.
How dare you?
Gross.
Yikes.
Because I'm also weird and I like bullpups.
You know, I think there's merit to them. I think they're a great idea on paper. They're just often not executed very well.
Yeah,
But
they're kind of shit and spongy triggers, and I'm aware of the issue. But they're cool.
There's been better designs lately, and I'm like, if people could just keep working on that.
Desert Tex is the one that I'm very interested in.
Yes, I've heard good things about it.
This is the best design right here. The Libby AK.
Woof.
But yeah,
and it's also you can't change what side it ejects from. So if you're left-handed, it's just hitting you in the face the whole time.
You're screwed. You're absolutely screwed.
What a nightmare. How did you pick your setup for your rifle, and how does it differ from other people that you know?
Well, which rifle are we talking about?
Well, I'm just looking at the one on your YouTube banner, so let's go with that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
we want a list of all your guns.
Does it say UWU on
serial numbers?
Does it say UWU on the dust cover?
It does. It does. Yes.
Amazing.
Just being cheeky. Yeah, so that's my 14.5-inch AR build. That was the first AR-15 I've ever owned and assembled myself. I've actually never bought a fully assembled AR before. So that was a really fun build. It was what I learned everything about the AR-15 on. It's basically a BCM upper on a M4E1 lower. And the upper I like replaced the muzzle device with. It's a pinned Surefire war comp, and I've got a primary arms Raptor 1:6 times LPVO on it. I've got an offset RMR for 1 times quick action, and a Streamlight HLX weapon lights with a Surefire light pad. Then I put a BCM vertical foregrip on it, B5 SOP mod stock, Magpul K2 handguard, or hand grip, pistol grip rather, Radian Raptor LT charging handle. That's kind of the builds. But yeah, I know it's just a bunch of technical mumbo jumbo for a lot of people, but basically I just built that rifle to be like kind of my dual AR-15, and it kind of does everything pretty decently.
The truck gun.
And yeah, I wouldn't want to call it a truck gun because I don't want to keep guns in a truck. Trucks are not your holster. Don't do that unless you want it to disappear and get your window smashed. But yeah, it's a really great, like, well-rounded AR build, and I'm extremely happy with it.
So you learned everything off this one, yeah?
As far as the AR-15 platform goes, this is like my entry into that world. Yes.
And have you expanded and built another one, different builds, different sort of things? Is that like, do you prefer rifles? Do you prefer handguns? Like what's your preferred platform?
I definitely prefer rifles. They're easier for me to shoot, and there's just something really gratifying with being able to like hit things up close and far away. And yeah, the AR is a great design. It's a tried and true old design at this point, but it still has like maintained relevance because it's evolved gracefully for the last 70 years. And there's been a great aftermarket for it. It's popular for obvious reasons in the US because it's a US rifle and it's been around forever. I also built an 11.5-inch shorty kind of version of the same thing, really. That was more set up for closer quarters combat and night vision use, but this AR specifically was very much my like learning process of like getting introduced to this platform.
Okay. So with historical firearms, or not necessarily just historical firearms, but what would you say that your favorite firearm is?
The
It's a great
grease gun.
question. A grease gun. Oh wow. That's a fun one, honestly. I mean, yeah, if I'm gonna be extremely pedestrian and basic here, I'm gonna say my favorite gun is the AR-15, honestly. Only because I know it inside out. I feel good about it. I'm familiar with it. I trust it. I've used it. It is an extension of me at this point. And like, if it had been any other rifle, I probably would say the same. And like, the reason I like the AR-15 is just because it has a good aftermarket. It's very easy to build. It's fun to build. And yeah, it's the most common rifle here. So I'm very practical about my purchasing decisions. And like, if you can consider anything I do practical, it's, yeah, I don't know. If you're going to get a rifle in the US, and that's just what I would always recommend to everybody.
Oh, Ace is here. He can ask the final question.
Hey Ace, ask the final question.
What's something that gets wet as it dries?
Is it a towel?
Yes, it's a towel. Thank you,
Ace? What do you think about this right here? What do you think about this right here? You like that?
Oh.
Okay, so here's the thing with Idlibi bullpups, from my understanding, is that because they're often in these super confined spaces, like oftentimes quite literally caves, that's why they're so small. Like it has like a practical purpose. They look goofy as shit, I can't lie. They look very goofy, but I just believe that due to the tight quarters that they often find themselves in, that's why they look like that. So I guess it's like, yeah, not a bad idea from me.
It's better than this gun. This gun's really gross.
I would really,
icky.
if I ever end up doing some work in Syria, I would love to see one of those. I'd love to like hold one. I'm like, can I see your bullpup, sir? Like,
I'd be curious. I mean, yeah, bullpups are valid. There's a reason people design them and use them.
The elite bullpup, the Australian made.
Although I do hear they're like hard to control when you're firing them. Like they kind of just go like the bullets just go everywhere. But that's
like
just
an
like
AKN. Yeah.
That's like some word of mouth shit I've heard. Not like actual like. It's not like
I feel like that's not true because you get a full length barrel in a short barrel platform.
I think it might.
I think it's because some people can't stabilize it on their shoulder or something, so they don't even know how to hold it. And it's more so people forgetting how to hold something. I don't know.
People also don't realize that
more so their fault than like the actual gun design.
Well, it's really funny because a lot of people don't realize that the F90 is a bullpup.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like one of the most popular guns ever.
You mean the P90?
Yes.
Yeah, it's absolutely a bullpup.
P90, yeah. F90 was.
And that's why, and that
FN P90, yeah.
Yeah. What'd you guys talk about earlier? I'm sorry, I was driving. I had to run a lot of fucking errands today.
We've gone over a lot of stuff.
GunTuber stuff and like how they're all chuds.
Oh, so you guys have basically been roasting fucking Garen Thumb this whole time, right?
A little bit, like but we're mostly roasting the fact that they're all owned.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot more corporate than people realize.
Yes, it is.
Which I didn't even know, so that's actually very disappointing.
Oh yeah, dude! Look at the production on those videos they put out. That is not cheap. That's all I'm saying.
But the one thing that we did find out was that and I didn't mention this before, but Demo Ranch is not on that list, and neither is Print Shoot Repeat.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
I'd be shocked if
Repeat can be on that.
No.
No, like
there's no reason to because he doesn't get paid to sell things.
Yes.
Yeah. Like guns already, it's a sensitive thing when you're talking about advertisers. His content is not advertiser friendly in the slightest.
No. It's not
And-
YouTube friendly.
So you have more than just you, right? Do you have like a team?
So I do have some friends who sometimes will film me like when I'm at the range to get range footage for like my intros and B-roll. But aside from that, everything else, literally everything else in this project is entirely done by me.
So if Ace wanted to come and shoot guns with you,
5th gen
That
content.
could be arranged. That could be arranged. I mean, generally, like, I'm not looking to shoot with other people. Like, by no means am I like trying to just be like, here's a field
Here's
trip
a
to the
gun.
range, you know,
Just
here's a gun,
fly.
just do it.
yeah, the
and,
American
like, yeah,
Sniper learned that the hard way.
I'm like, you know, obviously like pretty cagey. Like I don't.
You have to
I'm
leave
not-
that in.
I'm not trying to reveal my identity to random people on the internet. So yeah, I mean, generally, like unless I know somebody's like a friendly of some sort, I'm not about to make plans with them.
I was literally having this discussion with my friend 2 days ago. He's from New York, so he doesn't really know like fuck all about guns. But kind of like the whole thing is like I got into this big discussion with him that like my number one problem, I think like, you know, guns overall, you know, they're just a tool at the end of the day. How you use them varies. But yeah. I definitely think like when you look at America's gun culture, people say it all the time, but I think the bigger problem is like the actual gun culture than like the guns themselves. Right. Even though the amount of guns is when you think about it quite excessive.
Yeah.
But
no,
but
not
that's
enough.
that's also a product of the culture, right?
Yeah.
Like
you're nailing exactly what this episode was about.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
like you got these guys who live in suburbia who own like 5 different ARs.
Right.
It's just like, what do you think is gonna happen? You know, it's not like you're even, you don't even use 4 of them.
No.
And they're like $2,000, like however they build them and whatnot, and they get these like high quality specs, and people get these ridiculously expensive guns, and oftentimes they're not very good at using them. So that's another issue. Is it's like if we're gonna be this nation of guns, I feel like, you know, more people should actually know how to use them.
Yes.
And that's again kind of like the problem with like channels like Gear and Thumb and things like that. While there is, you know, some gun knowledge on there, a lot of it is about presentation and image and selling you a product as opposed to actually educating you about firearms.
They're so boring because it's like just get to it, man. Like they drag it has to be 10 minutes, it has to hit the ad. It's like, come on, dude. Like,
that's just,
I mean, I'm
let's make a good video.
I'm guilty of that myself.
Yeah,
we all are.
You get to a certain number of subscribers on YouTube, I think you just have to drag out videos.
You just gotta make sure your bases are covered, because like some of us, like myself included, like watch a lot of GunTube videos, and like some of us are just more inclined to like want to deep dive into that info, and like not everyone is, and like there's different channels and like different levels of detail that they present. But yeah, I mean, kind of going a little bit back here in that conversation that we're just having, like you bring up a good point though, like we were talking about education earlier, and I think as far as like if you want to make things safer, if you want to like destigmatize guns, if you want to encourage responsible gun ownership, then like we should have like subsidized gun safety courses at the very least. Like it doesn't matter if you want to own a gun or not, you should know how to like make one safe.
I said this is keep saying this, every gun purchase should come with a customary training course for that firearm.
For free.
That specific firearm for free. It should be included in the price.
Absolutely.
One of the reasons I think people who, you know, support gun rights and gun laws should stop supporting the NRA, because they charge ludicrous amounts of money for quite mediocre like gun education. You know,
you could like do a firing range and gun store all in one.
Yeah, and a lot of them are like a good portion of gun stores have a range in them.
I mean, pretty much all the ones that I went to while I was in America, because I'm like, I have to go have a look at these fucking things because I don't see these here.
Right.
They almost all had at least a 50-meter range indoors, if not an outdoor one.
Yeah, I've only done outdoor.
And they rent out guns so you can try things and inform your purchasing decisions.
Real M4. I was very excited.
Nice.
Going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning with like sort of legislations and stuff, I've always had this idea that we have the technology now that we could easily do an isolated sort of internal background check system that isn't connected to the federal system that wipes a background check once it's cleared. So there's no record of it, but the background check is cleared.
My
right, and it's
understanding
updated.
of it,
It's updated every however often to update the criminal records of whoever's on the things. And leave it up to gun shop owners and their discretion. And if they sell, maybe there's and this is where I'm a little iffy, but maybe a little bit of liability on the seller, something like that.
No!
Make it more accountable to the community as opposed to the state.
No. Not in a capitalist country. We don't put liability on the seller. No. We are never going to put liability on the gun manufacturing industry. Because that's what we do.
I didn't say the manufacturer. I said the gun seller, the shop.
These little libs talking about how we need war to sell guns.
I didn't say the manufacturer.
We sell way more guns at peacetime. You know, it's just all about selling guns.
I didn't say manufacturer. I said the seller, not the manufacturer.
It still drives the end goal: more guns and more money.
And that's actually a very interesting point, though, on the manufacturer thing, because that was actually brought up recently.
Yes.
They were suing? Was it Remington? Who'd they sue? Smith and Wesson, something like that. It was Daniel Defense, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
Whatever the company was, they tried to sue the manufacturer, which is ridiculous. Because are you going to sue the manufacturer of a car because it hit someone and killed someone? That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
right.
If somebody like intentionally ran somebody over,
if it's a Ford Pinto.
Like I'm like, if there's like a product that is defective and is a liability, then
then it's on the manufacturer.
But like, if the gun's working the way it should be and someone uses it to kill somebody, then like, it's not the manufacturer that should be. I mean, I don't know. I'm not about to go to bat for manufacturers, but I think it's a distraction from the issue. And yeah,
I'm the minorities.
Yeah. What final thoughts do we have?
Well,
if you're gonna buy a gun, learn to use it.
Yeah.
learn how it actually works.
Absolutely. Train.
Rock in your garage.
Well, that's actually one of Grand Thumb's best pieces of advice.
I agree.
If you don't train, there's no point.
There's no point.
It's as simple as that.
He's right. He's absolutely right.
It's not a magic wand, you know.
It's not a status symbol. I mean, people try to treat it like one, but like it's kind of like buying a really fancy hammer. I'm like, I don't really think people get it.
It's a hammer at fast speeds.
But did the hammer kill Osama bin Laden? There you go.